The epic battle on Egghead Island just keeps heating up, because the One Piece manga has just revealed that another insanely powerful force is about to join the fight. Because right at the end of the chapter, we do see some mysterious force destroying a marine battleship that was actually sent itself to destroy the civilians who tried to escape from Egghead. And so, to really make sense of what we're seeing here and who is coming, let's first go back to chapter 1089. Because here it's where we first learn that the ship with all of the Egghead citizens has evacuated the day before this event. Which at first glance might not seem like a big deal, but is actually a super important detail that we'll discuss in a lot more depth in just a moment. But also in that chapter we see that once the Marines had located that ship, Saint Saturn, just like he did on Ohara, ordered the immediate execution of all of them because he didn't want any of Egghead's secrets to escape the islands. And now if we jump back to the current chapter here, we do know that someone has destroyed that marine vessel that was sent to wipe out the evacuated citizens. And the reason why this is so exciting here is that if someone is here taking out marine ships, well then that means that an entirely new group of characters could soon be joining the massive chaos going on at Egghead. And honestly, no matter who you have in mind who it might be, it's probably not gonna be who you expect. Because for one, the most straightforward assumption here that I do think that Oda himself wants all of us to believe is that this is actually the work of the Blackbeard pirates, since we have been waiting for them to do something around Egghead ever since we saw one of their ships arriving at Egghead way back in chapter 1079. However, this absolutely cannot be those Blackbeard pirates, since we do know that the civilian ship left the day before the current events. In other words, they should be pretty far away at this point, while the Blackbeard pirates that we saw arriving on the island, well, they were right there even before the battle started. And so while Blackbeard or some of his crew might still be around, well, if it's not them, who else could this possibly be? And of course, the first option that I'm just gonna throw out here, even though I personally don't really believe in it, would of course be the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. And I mean, the main reason is that we've all been waiting for these guys to do something in the story for ages now, but we've seen Luffy in way worse situations before than this right now, and they have never shown up at that point. So I'm not really counting on any of the Grand Fleet to show up at this time around. And so the next option here is that this could be a completely different group still of the Blackbeard pirates. Because you have to remember that we do know that Blackbeard was somewhat near Egghead Island, since he did clash with Law very soon after the Surgeon of Death left Wano together with Luffy and Kid. And so it would be entirely possible that even if Blackbeard isn't already at Egghead on that one ship we saw, well, he could still be close by on a second ship. And if that were to be true, then of course we just have to ask why he would take out the Marines here. And the best answer here is honestly not so that he can save the poor citizens, but so that he could take them hostage and use them later to get something that he really wants from Dr. Vegapunk or the government. Now, whether this would be some sort of weapon or maybe some cloned devil fruit or something, or again joining the Celestial Dragons, we can't really know. Or if he's making his way to Egghead Island right now, that would obviously add a ton to the already ongoing battle. But still, even though I do think that this is a real legit option and might happen, it is far from the most exciting and likely option that we do have here. Because in fact, I personally would be a lot more excited if a completely different Blackbeard pirate was on their way here, because it is entirely possible that instead of his captain, the former Marine Admiral Kuzan could be the one traveling to Egghead. And I mean, think about it. Wow. If the Ice Fruit user was truly the one coming to Egghead, then there are just so many connections that we have to make here. Because in case you forgot, Kuzan was also present during the first Buster Call on the island of Ohara, and that specific event has way too many connections already to the events on Egghead Island. I mean, just start with that exact escaping civilian ship, for example, because back on Ohara, the current fleet Admiral Akainu destroyed a similar civilian ship to at that point prevent secrets from Ohara Ohara escaping the island as well. So wouldn't it just be so fitting here that Kuzan, who was also present back on Ohara, would do the exact opposite of his marine counterpart by saving the ship of civilians? Because do remember, even at the Ohara incident, Kuzan let 2 other people escape, and that of course was Nico Robin and Sal, because he was unclear about what was actually the right thing to do here, and he really hoped that Robin would prove to him that he was right letting her live with her actions in the future. And so by destroying this marine vessel here, Kuzan could be showing us that he now has a much clearer sense of his own justice and is determined not to let the Marines kill any more innocent civilians. But of course, that is far from the only connection that Kuzan has on Egghead Island, because if he were to actually show up on Egghead Island here, that would also be the first time in forever that he sees Robin in basically over 2 years. And I, for one, would be very excited to see these two finally reunite and interact again, especially now that the entire Straw Hat crew could actually put up a real fight against the chilly former admiral. And honestly, we could maybe even learn just how much loyalty Kuzan actually has to Blackbeard, because many people have speculated in the past that Kuzan has his own goals, or even that the former admiral could eventually join the Straw Hat crew instead. Still hoping for that actually, though admittedly that would be a little bit of a weird dynamic to have Robin and the man who used to hunt her down on the same crew. So, you know, maybe it should be Kizaru after all. Besides that though, do sign me up for a Kuzan versus Kizaru clash, because I would just love to see what the current admiral, who's basically a slave to the world government fighting against his shackles right now, while battling against the man who actually chose to leave the government himself, what that would look like. I mean, who knows? Maybe Kuzan's arrival could actually help knock some real sense into Kizaru finally tipping the balance here and convince the flashy admiral to protect his friends and the people he cares for instead of trying to kill them. And on top of that, Kuzan could of course also inform the Straw Hats and Luffy about Garp's capture or death or whatever really happened to him, which could actually pose a really interesting dilemma for Luffy. Because if Garp is captured, does Luffy just abandon his grandfather and continue straight to Elbaf like we all basically have assumed, and which was basically confirmed by Vegapunk? Or if he knows that Garp has been captured by Blackbeard, well, would he just go off and try to rescue his grandpa back at Pirate Islands? Either way, it's really hard to tell what would happen here, but it would be really interesting to see Luffy have to choose, and Kuzan could be the perfect person to bring that information to Egghead Islands. In other words, if that wasn't super obvious at this point, clearly I am all on board the Kuzan to Egghead Island train, but that doesn't really mean that there aren't some other still mind-blowing possibilities as well. For one, it could be Vivi and Big News Morgans, who were supposed to be making their way over to Egghead Island as well. And obviously saving a bunch of civilians is exactly the kind of thing that Vivi would want to do herself. However, there is even one other option that I actually think could change the entire world. So remember that we still have this as well. Well, what if this Iron Giant wasn't the only thing that woke up after hearing Luffy's heartbeat? In other words, yeah, I'm saying there could be another ancient bit of technology that also heard the drums of liberation from Luffy's heartbeat and is heading back to Egghead to find the source of its calling. So that's a wild one, but then there are also other possibilities that we just have to throw out there as well. For one, the Revolutionary Army would certainly make a lot of sense for why they would want to come. I mean, Kuma came to Egghead Island and they were even discussing where he could have gone, so they probably want to save him if they can. Which, as a coincidence, would also be the perfect opportunity for Dragon to take down one of the Gorosei, which is, after all, the main goal of the Revolutionary Army in the first place. But there is one major obstacle for the revolutionaries to show up here, and that's basically because they are literally on the other side of the Grand Line. Because as we know, the Revolutionary Army does now have their new base at Kamabaka Kingdom, which is still in the previous part, the Paradise part of the Grand Line, while Egghead Island is basically literally on the other side of the world, near the end of the New World. In fact, the only reason Kuma got here so fast from Erijua is because he can teleport basically super fast with his Devil Fruit, but unless the rest of the Revolutionary Army does have some sort of flying or like super speed transportation power, I really just don't see how they could come here at such a high speed. point. However, even if Dragon doesn't make it in time to save Luffy and co, an even stronger force, it's much closer, and that's of course that of the Red Hair Pirates. Because remember that the last time that we saw them was on Elbaf, which as far as we know at least should be one of the next islands relatively close to Egghead. And now you might be asking, well, why would Shanks want to come to Egghead Island? And that's actually a great question because there isn't really a great answer here. I mean, yeah, of course you could say, finally wants to come and see Luffy, or maybe he is after Luffy's copies of the poneglyphs, but why would he come at this specific time right now? Yeah, you got me there. However, there is one person on Elbaf with direct ties to many people on Egghead Island, and that is of course the giant Saul, who we just recently learned was actually still alive and protecting the knowledge that was saved from the library of Ohara. And so in other words, if he learned that Vegapunk was in trouble, then I'm pretty sure that he would want to help his former research buddy. Plus, there are Saul's ties to Robin as well and their eventual reunion, which just has to happen. But while we're throwing out options, then if Saul is coming to Egghead, it would make sense that he would be bringing a whole crew of either Shanks or the Giants with him, which should be more than enough to help the Straw Hats win that battle here. And since we have been mentioning that a lot now, let's actually talk about that battle because wow, there was a ton to go over from just this chapter. For one, the marine battleships are finally going crazy bombing the island. Saturn has just ordered all of the pacifistas to fire their super lasers at Bonnie and Kuma, all while thinking how pathetic they are, which, ouch, cold. And part of me wonders if this is all gonna backfire on Saturn himself. Because I mean, we've basically spent the entire arc going back and forth with whose side the pacifista actually are on, and in the end, it does seem like no one can overrule Saturn, but now there might actually be one person who can, and that would of course be Kuma, who was the first original pacifista that all the others are actually based off. In other words, what if he somehow actually managed to gain control of them in the last moment? Maybe because of something Vegapunk installed or through Kuma's sheer willpower, and he basically orders them all to fire on Saturn instead, because that, my friends, would be insane and deserved, and I am 100% here for it. Besides that though, we basically got an overview of what all of the other Straw Hats are currently up to, which honestly is very helpful because there's been a little bit too much to keep track of here on Egghead. Which firstly, and probably most importantly, we finally got an answer to the many mysteries from the last few chapters involving Luffy. For one, we wanted to know where he actually got the food from and then where he disappeared to last chapter, and in a mind-blowing twist, it was actually revealed that the world government finally found a way to keep Luffy from fighting them. They couldn't capture him, they couldn't defeat him with an admiral, but in this chapter, when Luffy was confronted by the unstoppable temptation of a super high-tech food vending machine, well, Luffy was defeated and helpless. All jokes aside here though, what is Luffy doing right now? I mean, I do know he is a hungry guy and food is basically healing energy for him, but leaving a massive battle with the Gorosei while his friends' lives are on the line just so that he can have another round of fast food just seems like a little bit too much even for Luffy. Like seriously, Kizaru nearly took out Bonnie and Kuma again in this chapter. Sanji is running back and forth like a madman trying to save these two and Vegapunk, but no, Luffy's just, munching down on some food here, which again, really weird. Anyways, seriously though, I'm trying not to be too disappointed with this and instead focus on why Oda would want Luffy to be separated at the moment anyways. And if you really think about it, he does this quite often during any major battle. Because we've often seen where Luffy is just gonna be missing or trapped somewhere or unable to help the rest of the crew for a moment. That happened during Thriller Bark when he was getting his nightmare power up and the rest of the crew had to basically hold off Moria by themselves. It happened on Dressrosa when Luffy ran out of haki for 10 minutes, and even in Wano after being smacked off the rooftop by Kaido. So it's really not that this has never happened before, but usually Luffy isn't choosing to be separated like he is this time. But then again, maybe I'm just overthinking this and Oda is just doing it to let some of the other Straw Hats have some time to shine as well a bit. For example, like Sanji, who is putting in work this chapter, or Frankie blasting Saint Saturn in the previous one. Plus giving Luffy a little bit of a a timeout here does allow us to rebuild some of our fear for the main enemies, because Kizaru and Saturn are truly threatening the rest of the group for their lives while Luffy is taking his munch break. And honestly, I'm sure that it will eventually pay off when Luffy or someone else needs to step up and protect the crew once again. However, Sanji is not the only one putting in some real work this chapter, and after nearly 20 chapters or so of not seeing half of the crew, we finally got a recap of what's going on for most of them. For example, Nami, Chopper, and Robin are still back in the lab. Robin asleep for some reason, then Brook is helping the Lilith Vegapunk to get the Sunny in position to finally escape from the island. Zoro is still supposedly off fighting Lucci. I've completely forgotten about that. Just honestly, a kind of something I'm hoping that we get to see more of at some point. I mean, if not, then Zoro literally just had a major fight for himself off screen for 20 chapters or so. But I do assume that we'll get to see our green-haired swordsman sooner than later, because Jinbei is now heading off to either stop his fight or to find him in case that he's just straight up lost somewhere on the island, which, let's be real, might be the more likely case here. And so it does look like we're finally heading for an escape rather than a full-out fight against the government like we initially hoped for once Saint Saturn actually arrived on the island. And truthfully, I do think an escape was always the most likely scenario here. I mean, no one really expected us to be at Egghead once we left Wano in the first place, so it does make sense that we wouldn't truly have a giant all-out war here. But then again, if the crew just does end up escaping successfully here, I'll just have to admit I would be a little bit disappointed, because basically the entire arc they've been building up this hype and promise about a world-shaking event taking place here, and feel like we've kind of gotten it, but not really world-shattering at this point. And so I'm very much hopeful for the end of this arc and more than excited for whatever is coming next. And to bring this all the way back to the end of this chapter, if this mysterious savior is in fact a group of giants coming from Elbaf to save the day, then there would be no better way than that to kick off that insanity that is bound to be the Elbaf arc, with then an entire escort of giant Vikings escorting the Straw Hats to the island. And if all this chaos on Egghead plus the roller coaster of emotions that was Kuma's backstory has gotten you all mixed up about what we can actually expect to happen next in the story, then this video right here is the absolute perfect one for you to get all caught up on what to expect from the legendary Elbaf arc and everything that needs to happen there. Thanks so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. I know it's annoying, but it does really help the channel, and I hope to see you in the next one.